Boom. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And I want to talk about what is known as the creator economy. The creator economy and Web3. I haven't had a Web3 stream in a hot second, except for obviously the Learn to Code Live toilet contract stream, which, by the way, I'm doing again tomorrow. I'm going to have Fido from Self-Taught Hustle on, and hopefully one or two other people. That would be nice. We'll see about that. So if you guys are interested in coming to see that, come and check it out. So the creator economy, in order for me to accurately describe to you guys what that is in current times, because we're obviously in 2022, right? We're not in 1822. We kind of need to get a brief backstory on the history of economy pretty much throughout the last century and actually the last 2 centuries. But we've kind of had these these creative thinking people, when I'm not just talking about artists, okay? I'm talking about just people in general who, and you could even consider an engineer to be a creative thinker. I would, specifically a software engineer or really an engineer, period, who has to use their brain to come up with a solution to solve mankind's problems. But we do have to go back and look at the past, because the economy in the last, like I told you guys, 200 years has changed drastically. And if you guys have been to grade school, you guys kind of know a little bit about this stuff, right? But before we do get into the stream, developerdirection.com, if you are interested in learning how to code and actually getting a job out of it, have to give my own personal advertisement, because this channel is not advertised by anyone except for myself and Trezor. But no need to talk about the Trezor today. All right, guys. So in the past, like I said, we've always had creative people, right? I'm willing to suspect that whoever invented the wheel was a quote unquote creative thinking person. Colia says this is going to be fire. Hope so, man. Hope so indeed. So ever since the mid 18th century, we had quite a few major economic changes, and it wasn't just because of the economy itself. It's also because of the stuff that was going on socially, wars, etc. And all those changes that we've had, those are what have gotten us to where we are today. So if you guys know about the agricultural revolution, we're not going to go back to the beginning of how that started, because that is kind of out of the scope of this. But in the mid 18th century, we kind of had this shift from what was known as the agrarian economy, with the agricultural revolution, that I just talked about. It was no longer really a revolution. It was kind of like a way of life. And then we kind of shifted into the industrial revolution. And that led societies that were more agricultural based, producing primarily, if you guys go to literally just go to Google, and if you search what was the average job 1,000 years ago, I wonder if this will actually pop up. Let me see. What was the average job 1,000 years ago? It's a terrible search query, but bakers, priests, noblemen, soldiers, and farmers, and merchants and fishermen. But primarily, guys, most people, after we were kind of in larger societies at that point, we were basically kind of a bunch of farmers. Not literally, but that is what the economy was based off of. The world economy. So let me make sure so I don't get someone who comes in and says, actually, the world's economy coalesced together. Primarily, what I'm saying was centered around agriculture. Okay, maybe you had a local economy where they had a bunch of ice schools in the cave, and the ice schools were I don't know, magical golden ice schools. I'm sure that they probably had a pretty good economy based off of their magical golden ice schools. But far and large, that was the case. Okay, and into that whole industrial economic shift into the industrial economy, it basically continued until World War II. The goal of the industrial economy was to produce more goods that would be accessible to more people in total. at the time, like they didn't have a lot of crazy manufacturing capabilities like we do today. Although even in 2022, it might not seem like that with all the shortages. Cody Moose in the Who says, "Just call me Da Vinci." Yes. Back then, goods were more scarce, guys, and like things weren't as easily accessible as they are today. Like you couldn't just go if you were hungry. It wasn't just as easy as like going to like in your car and taking a quarter-mile drive to the local McDonald's down the street, which is on like every goddamn block in this country and other countries too. I don't know, but I know that there is McDonald's in those countries, and because of that kind of triggered this when we moved into the agrarian economy, into the industrial economy. That kind of triggered this shift of power from the agrarians to the manufacturers. So at this point, and we're talking about creative people here, at this point, the creative minds, they were more focused on the development of new ideas related to production and like automation of processes of production, right? How can I engineer and build this machine to crank out as many steel metal bars as possible? Those creative minds, that was the primary like focus at the time, and those are the ones who were able to like gain financially the most, get the most recognition, yada yada yada. And that isn't to say that like artists and painters, they didn't exist at this time, and they most certainly did, but they weren't like the number one thing on the totem pole, right? They at this point, they weren't kind of seen like buying paintings and stuff. It wasn't necessarily seen as like this subset of the economy. And although I would say I'm sure, and I don't know this, I don't know this for sure, but I'm sure that I feel that I'm sure like wealthy people probably still like wanted to, collect old artwork that was like historical in nature, right? The Model T, yes, indeed. How can we mass produce 1 bazillion Model Ts? Harry McGuire says, "What do you mean by creator economy? Content creators." That well, you can consider that, right? But think about how, and I don't know when you just joined in, Harry, but think about how, in order to be like an engineer, you have to be creative. And what I was just saying is, at the time, like when we went into this industrial economy during the Industrial Revolution, the creative people, like and I'm not at this point, I'm not specifically talking about like artists and like engineers or people that are problem solvers and finding solutions to things as the same thing. I'm talking about them as two separate people, but they do kind of fall into the same umbrella. The creative thinkers, they were more concerned, and the ones that got the most benefit were the ones that were out there like trying to automate processes, like making mass machinery to build things, right? So then post World War II, guys, we basically had another shift in the economy, and that was from the industrial economy that we were just in prior to World War II to what we called the consumer economy. I must consume. You guys know that meme? Can I find it? The average consumer. Am I going to get like in trouble if I put a picture of this on YouTube? Man, I don't know. You guys just go Google it. The average consumer, just Google it. So at this point, we no longer had to like have to find the problem of how are we going to be able to make enough goods for everyone to have? How are we going to have enough like engineering capabilities to do so? How are we going to rig all this machinery up to do so? At this point, it was it was overkill. We did too much. Well, too much, I guess, would be a like opinion on it, but things were no longer scarce at this point. Okay, manufacturers started producing way more than people actually wanted to buy, so things were no longer scarce, and now they had a new challenge. The economy's new challenge, and the people that were producing these things, was how to make a customer wish to buy what they offered. Right. So this kind of triggered an economic shift of power yet again from what is currently the manufacturers to then the consumers, right? So now at this point, the consumers are kind of like the important power holders of the economy itself. And this is when like things like salesmen, marketers, mass media, like TV, radio, newspaper, etc., all that stuff started becoming very prominent. And we had a rise in that thing called pop culture, which I don't know. I think like personally, I think
personally, I would say pop culture is dead.
I don't know. Pop culture is pretty lame these days. It's just kind of like consume, which I guess it always has been from the get-go, but at least it wasn't. At least people were like less drony about their consumption, and like you had to at least have a reason to get something, right? So unlike the industrial economy, the consumer economy, it brought a larger variety of creative jobs and activities that just people could do in general. People weren't just like for fun. They weren't like out in the field trying to get some extra farm hours in, I guess. And at this point, creativity had to have mass appeal. Okay. So the creativity at this point kind of had another shift. We no longer had to use creative minds and thinkers like engineers to go and how are we going to mass produce things? We overproduce things. And the people that were creative, the creative minds at this point had to go and figure out how we're going to convince people. Like, we got too much stuff. How am I going to go? How are we going to go and convince people to buy our stuff compared to like all the 1,800 other different things? So like how many, if you wanted a 4-door sedan for a new car, I mean, how many options do you have right now? I mean, granted, right now we got like some loopy stuff going on with the economy as well, right? And we also have shortages, but if we take a step back like 2 years before we are now, I mean, you could pretty much just like that day you wanted a car, you had like 18 bazillion different cars to choose from in probably whatever city you were in. Christian Soto says, good evening. And Wade Emery also says, good evening. Hello, hello, hello. So, yeah, creativity had to have mass appeal, my friends. And then we had yet another shift, and that was from the consumer economy to the creative economy, okay? And as a creative economy, not creator, okay? There's going to be a differentiation there, but it does kind of coincide a little bit. So this is in the 1990s, guys. For the 90s kids out there, smash the like button. But what happened in the 90s, guys? What became prominent? The internet, right? So we had this like shift to digitization, right? And then IT, information technology, it started to kind of like change a huge spectrum of lots of different economic sectors. And the new economic like environment, it necessitated for the demand for a newer type of creativity yet again. Because if you really think about it, you go back to what I was saying, and I try to parlay that to you guys and make a little notes as to how everyone so far has been creative in all those different economies in one way, shape, or form. But that need was arisen again in a different form. And at its core, the creative economy, it valued individual talent at this point, and individual innovation a lot more than it previously had happened, obviously, because we had the internet, right? And it also valued the exploration of like things like IP, intellectual property. If you guys, I don't know if you guys are old enough, but you guys remember like Napster and like LimeWire and all that stuff. There was like a huge, I remember it was like the biggest deal ever. They were like, you can't. First of all, you could download music for basically at the time for free, right? And all of a sudden, it was a no thing to do because I mean, you're basically stealing someone's intellectual property, or you're getting access to it rather for free when they should have been charging or wanted to charge money for it, right? And then all of a sudden, all those sites, or all those sites, not sites, but all those applications that we used to use on our computer didn't really work anymore unless you went to some kind of like bay that was having to be full of pirates in Minecraft, of course, right? Not in the real world. But this economy had a new challenge, and for all intents and purposes, it was to bring innovation into all economic sectors, like all different parts of the economy, and to satisfy the demand and for each of those parts with digital products and services, because like the internet was a new thing, right? However, it, in the same kind of similarity to the consumer economy that we had just talked about, it was still kind of like aimed to serving consumers' needs. So you can still think of this as kind of like an extension of the consumer economy, or really kind of like the evolution of the consumer economy. Okay, it didn't really offer creators, what we're going to call. So we're actually going to use the term creators now, but the creative people, the creative thinking people, any kind of like new or groundbreaking ways to turn their creativity or their talent into like independent entrepreneurship. It did offer them benefit, right? And it did offer them opportunity, but it was primarily like more about creativity by employment, okay? Rather than like simulating environments for like the creative thinkers themselves to succeed on their own terms, whether that be, you know, through employment elsewhere or through like entrepreneurship or self-employment, right? So from there, we are kind of in this, we're not really kind of in that economy anymore. I mean, for academic purposes, we don't have a current definition of like what our like we don't have an academic definition of what our current economy is, okay? Because we're still kind of in that creative economy. But some people would argue, which I read an article last night, and that's why I'm talking about this in the stream. Some people could argue that we're kind of already in this new one, and you can't really like go and like say, okay, these 10 years, that was a shift from one economy to another, right? You can't do that while you're in that time period. It's always going to happen like after, when you're looking back at it, right? But people are arguing that we have this shift now to this thing called the creator economy. It's the creator economy instead of the creative economy. And you can argue that this has already begun when like big, large IT giants like Facebook, YouTube, the platform that I'm on right now, and all the like Google, all the things that are similar, right? Instagram, et cetera, Twitter, when they came into the scene. And they basically, what happened when this happened, guys? It basically started to compete with like traditional mass media. In the 2008 financial crisis, by then, if you go and look at statistics and polls, which I should have had some of these prepared, I should have saved them, but I did not. But you guys can go to Google and check yourselves. At this point, basically, like a majority of people, they had already trusted, or let's just say not trusted, they already used things like YouTube, Facebook, Google as their primary means of like information sourcing and knowledge to traditional mass media. Okay, and at this point, yet again, another challenge arrives, and that is to kind of convert those customers through engagement and participation. And in reality, like the consumers themselves, they're at this point able to like add value themselves and like participate specifically themselves, right? Harry McGuire Jr. says competing brands are often owned by the same people. Yeah, that is very true. That's to like kind of keep the thing going on, man. Sam Perchinsky hopping on. New economy means multiple streams of income. Yeah. Disintermediary is inevitable. Yeah. Yes. Sam saying yes. Christian said, it says the days of giving your computer aids. LOL. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's still possible, right? Like, you just need like to get a good old Windows machine and just go to some sketchy sites, some sketchy .onion sites that you don't need to. Really, and in the who's says BASED. Why, thank you, sir. Very nice of you. Sam says the new economy is contractor based, paid for a defined scope of work, with natural monopolies like healthcare and banking being socialized in a decentralized fashion. That's really interesting, dude. I actually wasn't really going to talk about that tonight, but that coincides a lot with some of the premonitions of a lot of notable and famous books over the last 50 years. I'm sure you guys think of one in particular that I'm talking about, but yeah, that's crazy. Because I believe that might be true. Debt Jubilee, followed by a removal of the rentier class. R-E-N-T. Oh, you mean like the rentier class? Hold on, let me make sure I get that definition right. Rentier is a class of people who derive their incomes from financial titles of property. Ah, okay. Consume. I know what you mean now. Okay. So at this point, like you guys are in a live chat right now with me, and like y'all are interacting and talking, adding to the stream. Like Sam, for example, Sam just like gave some good notes that I wasn't even going to talk about in the stream. He added value to the stream, and he's here watching it. I'm here giving it. And it's really not like all we have to do is click some buttons, right? It's pretty easy. And this also allowed the consumers to promote themselves. And they're actually if they want to, they can be the products themselves and they can monetize that, right? Which that's pretty notable. It's kind of like a drastic shift in comparison to where like when we were in what they called the consumer economy, the consumers kind of had the most power at this point, but they themselves kind of didn't really have like a way or a means to monetize the fact that these companies know that they need to sell to these people, but like they don't really have a voice, right? They don't really even know that they don't have a voice at that point. They just know that that's how it is, right? Writers, musicians, painters, the people that I was talking about several times prior to, and these people, they have had at this point like the most tremendous amount of at least self ability, rather, to I could have thought of a better word, derp, but anyway, you guys know what I mean, like the ability themselves in a sovereign manner, you could say, to promote themselves, right? Like make a YouTube channel. You can just make your own website. You can go and make an Instagram. It's not super hard, right? And it kind of like is starting to alleviate these so-called gatekeepers, old-fashioned gatekeepers like producers, you guys, music producers, things like that, kind of starting to become relevant too. Although there is kind of like I would say there is kind of like a line, right? There's like a line because I mean we only have. It's not like we have like one platform, right? Like, so I'm here on YouTube, right? But there's maybe like 5 or 6 pretty like notable platforms I could choose to go stream from. If we take Twitch out of the equation, all right? Because Twitch, honestly, like that's like what? That's like primarily for like gaming, right? Like live streaming gaming. If we remove Twitch, we got like 4 or 5, right? And the reason I'm still choosing to stream on YouTube, which by the way is owned by Google, which is a like massive tech company, is because, well, this is where currently most people are, right? At least for now. So there kind of is still like gatekeepers because rest assured, my friends, you can rest assured. If you were watching this video, and obviously like this is going to apply to me because I'm the one that is streaming this video, you can rest assured that good old YouTube, they're getting something out of the stream, right? Like I don't even have 1,000 subs yet, which by the way, please, if you enjoyed the stream, go ahead and subscribe. But I don't have 1,000 subs yet, so I can't like technically get I can't get super chats, right? So what is YouTube gaining by having like all my videos hosted in their server farm, which actually is costing money? You guys might good question you might ask. Good question you might ask. Have you taken the CH1NA pill yet? Yeah. I mean, I'm aware of it, dude. Dude, there's just like so many like different competing information about that at this point, I don't even know what to believe. What I do want to do is I want to like go myself and like see if what I've heard from either sides is true or false and go myself and make the assertion myself. But if it's the actual CH1NA PILL that you're talking about, I mean, pretty scary, right? And it wouldn't be too far-fetched to believe because I mean, if you go out, if you're in America and you popped your head outside a window in the last couple of days, I mean, well, yeah. Sam says, yeah, dude, when I get a free moment, because I totally only work one job for Wagey Corp TM, I can make some live streams too. Christian says, do jacuzzi live streams on Twitch. Yeah, I would need to go get some big bobs and a nice bikini to support those big bobs, wouldn't I? That only works for chicks and bikinis, chicks and pit bull mixes. Excuse me. So this time period is like removing the relevance of those gatekeepers, but like low key, they're still gatekeepers. Okay, if Wagey Corp TM doesn't want you to be on Wagey Corp TM's platform, they're gonna shut you down. Okay, but with that being said, if you aren't on Wagey Corp TM's list, if you're not, don't have a bullseye on you. If you're being a good boy, if you're doing nothing but earning your good boy tokens TM and not losing your good boy tokens TM, then pretty much anyone with a laptop and an internet connection can participate in either side of it, right? So what the heck zippity doodah does that mean? Like what now that we've like given the backstory and like kind of where we're at right now, and again, I told you guys we can't really like say that we're in the creator economy right now. I'm not like an academic scholar, an academic economic scholar in the higher echelon of education. That shit's a meme, to be honest with you. But anyway, so I can't give that a definition, and then they haven't given like a clear definition on it yet, right? But if that was the case, what would that mean? Like, what is the creator economy in modern times in 2022? Well, like I said, like can't go to Google and give you guys this definition, but the article I was reading was written by someone named Julie Planvik, and she has a PhD in law. She was a corporate lawyer in the past, and she's basically like a Web3 enthusiast. But let me quote you guys what she said about how she's kind of like describing this thing. So she says, and I quote, conceptually, the current or Web2 creator economy is an online economic segment powered by a set of interactive digital platforms, kind of like, YouTube, marketplaces, and tools that enable users to access and create content as well as monetize it, right? So that's what she said, end quote. So there's no barrier of entry, but it's about as low as it can get, right? If you can get access to an internet and access to a computer, which a lot of people can actually get those things for free, you might have to do some things for it, but you might have to like go to a Starbucks or go to your local library. But that is kind of the case, right? But when you use these platforms like the one that we're on now, its algorithm kind of like I said, I told you guys, there's a catch to this, right? The catch wasn't just that they can deduct 25 good boy tokens from your wallet anytime you do something they don't like. They are aggregating your data, my data, and well, we kind of know what they do with it, but we don't really 100% know what they do with your data, right? But the part that we do know that they use your data is, well, this is your payment for your participation in their platform, right? So the gap that's narrowing between the so-called gatekeepers, if we go and look back in the last like kind of 3 economic switches, is starting to narrow, right? And we're getting thinner, especially my folks and friends out there, in whether you're like an IT person or you're a crypto enthusiast. This is your crypto person. If you know about it, if you know some of the purposes for cryptocurrency, at least like the main purpose, other than just number go up, cool loopty 1 quadrillion % APY smart contract, lock your poo tokens in the flush smart contract. If you know outside of that, it was what, guys? It was, well, in reality, to kind of remove like more third-party intermediaries that the so-called gatekeepers out of the picture of finance, right? It was born out of, at least we'll talk about Bitcoin, was born out of 2008 financial crisis. You guys can go to the Genesis block, Google Genesis block Bitcoin. You can literally look at it yourself, and it basically tells you like, yeah, we made this because, well, the banks, they can't be trusted, right? And in this current shift, which we already know what Web3 is, right? It is, I believe, just a natural thing. It's like Web3 has grown. If we coalesce, if we include Bitcoin itself in that Web3 umbrella, which I would say, like, you can't just say Web3 is okay, smart contracts on the internet, right? All of cryptocurrency, all digital assets, I would coalesce that into Web3, right? Just like we would with Web2, with all the big things that were going on at that time, you got to coalesce them all together. You can't really separate anything out. And you could consider this, some would call this the 4th industrial revolution. And it's kind of just like a natural progression of things that mimic the necessity, or not mimic, but are born out of the necessities that are there at current time, right? We didn't have the internet up until like really the 1990s. Okay, we didn't have like mass-produced machines. Like we didn't have computers everywhere up until like the last 20 years. So this is kind of like a wild card that came out of nowhere. And in a way, one way to think about it is like Web3. It is like finance, technology, and kind of partially like government wrapped into like it's like all three of those sectors like mesh into one, right? Which is definitely very different, right? But because the economy still exists and it has existed, like these things are being grown and evolved there to be there to solve what the current time's purposes are, right? Or needs are. And like if in the previous economic paradigms, if in those times like an artist could earn like through selling their intellectual property, they could do it through like advertisement, people could tip them, brand sponsorships like affiliate links, like that's kind of like majority of like what is available now, right? But and one thing else to note too, like even if your content's not 100% digital, like I would say that that's probably the case too, right? Like even if you're like an actual like live musicianist, you can still do those things, right? However, like the main goal of the creator economy, it's more to empower people for online and digital entrepreneurship, and it kind of gives them this digital like marketing tool set in order to remove those finite barriers of entry, because there's not a whole lot left at this point, right? Although I would say at this point that they're probably going to make it harder and harder to do that kind of thing. It's not. I think that they do want Wage Corp TM. That's just personal opinion, though. Sam says, please deposit weekly allotment of good boy tokens without any fines or time locks. Beep boop. Must produce units for Wage Corp TM. Yes, indeed. What up, Harry? Good to see you, man. So what does this all mean, guys? Like I would say like I said, like the barriers are still there. They're just different and they're a little bit thinner. Okay. That gap is starting to close in, right? Just talked about crypto, like more alternatives for things are starting to pop up everywhere if you just want to look for it, right? I think like I said, I know I went like on a wild tangent about Web3 crypto, but I think that kind of mentality shift like came from crypto. Like it started from crypto. Like it Bitcoin itself, the first one, it kind of infected all of us and people with the ideals of disintermediaries, right? Like we got to get rid of the third parties. Why are they there? And why are they charging money? And why do they make things more complicated? Why shouldn't I just be able to use my money in the manner that I want to use it? What? Why? In the past, without the internet, that information was available, but not to like. It's not like especially after like last year, guys, and all the craziness about like inflation and the economy and like everybody knows something's up with the economy now, right? Like that's made, I'm willing to bet that's made a lot of people ask questions that would have never asked this kind of question before. And they kind of maybe have a smaller bit of understanding about how things actually are than they did previously, right? And like that mentality shift, like I think it came from crypto. Having 100% data ownership, to me at least, that's important. And self-sovereignty, that's also very important to me. And I think more people are starting to feel like that. And I think even only more are going to join that type of thinking as time progresses on, as current world situation equals true, as things are just basically playing out the same way that they have been. And it's like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to participate in that. That's kind of dumb. It doesn't make any sense. Like a lot of that stuff. And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about at all, one way that I can describe the feeling to you is like when you start to like understand and see things like that, what you think of is it's like, okay, my whole life I've been told to like slap myself in the face 5 times a day at exactly 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday. And if I don't slap myself 5 times a day, Monday through Friday at 8:30 in the morning, as hard as I possibly can, by the way, which as you get older, you should be slapping yourself in the face harder and harder. If you don't do that, then like something bad might happen. Those scary people like over there, they might do something bad. You might not have the opportunity to do this or that. And you live your whole life slapping yourself 5 times a day at 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, as hard as you can. And like as you're getting older, you're like this kind of hurts. You're starting to kind of get like welts on your face. In fact, there's like there's not just a handprint on the side of your head. Like the side of your head has like is concaved. Like you can like it fits in. Like you now have a hole in your head, the size and shape of your hand, and it's like it's probably never gonna heal. It's like it's black and blue. It's totally fucked, right? And you don't like the way it looks. You don't like the way it feels, and you're looking around and like you can tangibly test like, okay, like this skin is like dead. I can't see it in my right eye. Everyone else that I see that has the same handprint because they're told ever since they're a kid to do the exact same thing. They like when they're 60 years old, like they have no eyesight and they're no sight in their right eye. Like you guys get the point, right? It was a big exaggeration, but you get the point. The way that you feel when you start to think like this and to like realize some things, it's like all of a sudden you stop slapping yourself. It's like, wait a second, why was I doing that my whole life? Why were we told to do that? That makes no sense. Why is that even a thing? And by the way, guys, you have to like pay your self hand slap taxes too. And then you start to think like, why are they? What are those? What is that? Like, and I have to pay like 5 people to help me pay those taxes for that thing, slapping myself in the face. Why can't I just do it? I can do math. What doesn't make it? What? And you just like, oh, what? That's what you feel like, all right? I think I drove a point home on that, all right? And that's what we would call like the Web3 movement, okay? And its goal is pretty simplistic. It's, like I said, eliminating intermediary platforms and in relation to like the creator economy, specifically between like creators and their fans, their followers, people who are going to participate with those creators. Those people, creators, and this you yourself too, guys, because if you guys make anything digitally, well, you're a creator and you want to own your digital property. You want to own your IP, and owning 100%, not just of that, your IP, but also your data that is associated with or required to create that IP, right? Your brand itself and all the work that you do, and transparency of like the business protocol and money making period. Like for example, if you have an ERC20 address, like you can go plop someone's ERC20 address in, and everything's fully transparent. You can see all of it, right? You might not have a name to it, but if they willingly give you their address, then you know who it is, and then it's open and transparent. And also simulating like authentic creativity instead of like more like ad driven content production. So, and one thing I'll say about that, which is important to me, like I remember when I first started this channel, when I had DD, like the year before I even actually really started doing YouTube, I didn't really have to advertise. Most of it was through word of mouth and friends. And I would just, because especially at the time, like YouTube was like, I had like 100 subs. There's really no one to advertise to anyway. Like most of them were either like friends or people that maybe already were clients. So I didn't have to care about advertising from YouTube. And at the time I could just do streams and enjoy it, right? I would have to like start like the 12th second of each stream, be like, and by the way, here's my own self-advertisement, and I'm also advertised by Trezor and myself, blah, 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 blah. Like, they had to do those pauses, and it was easier and more literally creative. It was more literally freeing. So that is important to me too, because like the last thing I like to do is have to advertise. But in current times, if you have your own business, unless you want to pay other people to, you got to do it yourself, right? And we could wrap that in to the goals of this Web3 based movement and the creator economy. And it's got, I mean, there's so much more to include than that, but I really won't go on forever about it, because like I think I probably could be here like all night long. And I actually do
have to go create, because afterwards Aurelian and I have to go get together and do some Node.js programming, dude.
So to sum it all up, friends, like what can you derive from all that? Well, like I told you guys, most of these things, like the way that I see it, they've kind of just been a natural evolution. It's like, especially guys. Hold on, Josh. Finish what you're saying first before you change subjects. Okay. A natural evolution based off of the necessity or the need coming from society at that time, right? And what I wanted to say, we're going on the tangent, like if you go and pair the internet, we're just going back, let's just go back to like 1990. Better yet, let's go back to the year I was born, 1991. If you go and plot like a map of like changes in the internet and IT and all these different things, and you can kind of like put them in 3 different brackets, right? Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, right? If you look at the small changes in society in just those 20 years, they kind of like parody the growth in from Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, kind of parodies the stuff that was going on in that time, right? I mean, I don't think how that could get any more evident other than what I was just talking about, like the Genesis block in Bitcoin, like right after the 2008 financial crisis. Like someone did that. Like that's not a conspiracy theory. It's not like a shh. I need to get the soundboard set up again, guys. I know. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's like an actual fact, okay? Some people just don't know that, right? So to be more organic, to evolve with the current needs of right now, and we've kind of come through like a passing of like previous social and economic developments. Like I know you guys can all have all seen crazy changes in the last 2 years alone, okay? So I would say, like, for the 18th time on this stream, just as the World Wide Web, my friends, has evolved over just a small short period of time in just the last 20 years, okay? It's kind of like moving more, the economy is moving more towards the Internet of Things, the World Wide Web, now than ever before. And yeah, IT is new. Obviously, it's like this new kind of like unknown thing. Web3 on top of that, an even more unknown thing to most people than all the other unknown things. But it is what I believe, a natural evolution to support what is currently going on. Mind friends. Henry Guard Jr. says, even the normals will catch on. Well, I mean, they kind of are, right? Like, it all starts like, it all has to start somewhere, right? Like, usually things like start as a joke, right? I mean, dude, my grandma, I have 2 grandmas that are like, God knows how old they are. They both know what Bitcoin is. They don't understand it. I think one of them thinks that it's like an actual thinks that you actually get like an actual coin. Hold on, guys. I think I have one. Hold on a second, guys. Let me see. Can I find this bad boy? Not these coins. You guys see that? Look at that, guys. That's some silver coins. That's real silver currency back when our currency actually had some value. Hold on, guys. I think she thinks like this is like an actual, this is what a Bitcoin is, right? This is what she thinks. But they know what it is, right? But they don't know, but they've heard of it, right? I mean, especially like last year, everybody knows what it is. I mean, pretty much everyone knew what Bitcoin was, or at least had heard of it back in 2016, 17, right? When it was all over the news. And the more times the news talks about, oh my God,
Bitcoin died. It's all over. It's never coming back alive. It's going to big zero.
They're really just spreading they're just spreading information about it, right? That's when Rug the West becomes a reality. Listen here, brother. Goddamn. Yeah, I mean, I see that coming, right? Like, I know a lot of you guys do. You guys have known my plan, the Techno Silent Yacht. But I told you guys I've always wanted a base, right? You guys want to go see? I'm already overtime on this stream, but here, you know what? Let's do this. I want to get like Let me show you guys. If we can find a good picture of it. I need an actual place for the physical guava farms TM, right? So this is what is the kind of like the next goal, macro goal of mine, I would say, is to give me a good old nice homestead in Homestead, Florida. And I want to have like that, like a little, well, not little, I guess in this is probably like what, 2-3 acres. At that point, I will say, you know what I'll say, Harry? I don't care. Goodbye. Whatever is left of this like West. I mean, at this point, I'm just gonna be decentralized, yo. And sorry, like I'll care about my local community, right? Like, and I'll have a local community, but I'll have my own. I'll have all my things all set up, hopefully. So like, and I know a lot of other people are starting to think like that. Literally, including my own family, my own mom and dad. Like that's something that's actually on their agenda here pretty soon, which is like crazy because they think very differently from me on a lot of things like that. But it's almost like it's very apparent that Rug the West is commencing, right? But I would say on a more like sober and solemn, like less like depressing note, it's not, in my opinion, it's not just Rug the West, okay? It is Rug the intermediaries, Rug the unnecessary, quite frankly, at this point, kind of like leeching third-party entities. I won't call any names here, but there's probably a couple of like organizations out there that are probably really not like a net positive to all of humanity at all, and probably could argue a lot of humanity in the world would be better without them, right? And they, by the way, they cost a lot of money. Why do they exist? I don't know, right? Love the light in the background. Thank you, man. I should get other one. Actually, summertime is like the perfect time. So when I first started streaming, basically almost like a year now, guys. Basically, like we're like the channel is more than a year old. But when I actually started streaming and producing videos, about a year like from now, right now, and this was a time of the day that there was like when I started to stream at 8 o'clock, there's still like sunlight outside. So as the summer turned into winter, it was like nighttime already, basically the whole stream. And so then I said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to get these curtains back here. But it's like the other day I did a stream with the curtains open and it was like the perfect time again. And I was like, whoa, that's right. That's a thing. That's why I did that. All right, guys, please smash the like button if you guys did enjoy the stream. Subscribe if you also enjoyed it, or I don't know, do one or two of those things, or just like don't do anything at all. Whatever is up to you. Learn to code, learn to change your own tire, self-custody your crypto.